What's eclipsing your brand on social media? Hello, and welcome to Living with Favor, where we talk about faith, abundance, vitality, overflow, and relationships. I'm Lisa Mosbey, your host of Living with Favor. Thank you so much for tuning in and letting me offer a bit of advice. Today we are kind of connecting, not kind of, we are connecting current events of the coming eclipse to revelations and the end times. And we hope to wrap this into a few business tips, talking about how maybe our brand isn't being seen. Maybe we are being eclipsed in our business by some of the things that we're doing, and we're hoping to give you some tips at the end. But we wanted to just have some fun conversation. We have a couple of guests here today, so we're just going to be talking about the eclipse and what's happening in the world of the eclipse. And I have a special guest here who's going to share that. LeAnn is my friend first, and then my business partner, business associate, and we're both women of faith. LeAnn is a former teacher who turned entrepreneur. Her and her husband she and her husband had a very successful wellness company for many, many years. And she recently transitioned into working with and being a mentor to small business owners and entrepreneurs. She's helping folks to actually put tools into place to build their brand. Sound familiar? Like I said, we're business partners. We both do similar things, but in a different manner. So if I don't have you, she's got you. And I'm going to bring her on the show today to talk about the eclipse because she's been studying and following all of these activities. And we've been fascinated and we've been having amazing conversations off screen. And I thought, I would love to bring some other folks in and share it with you guys. So welcome, LeAnn. Come on in here. Let's get started on the eclipse. How are you today?
Well, as you're doing this beautiful introduction, I looked out the window and I feel like I'm in an eclipse right now. It's snowing again.
Oh my gosh.
I'm way up here in Minnesota and we went like all winter with almost no snow. And then we got dumped on like last week, but I'm pretty sure this is just kind of a mist and my tulips will be just fine.
Let's hope so. If it's not freezing, they may survive it. You
Hmm.
know, we both have been talking about bringing more faith into our business, and we've had some interesting conversations. I have not been following the news at all. I've been wrapped up in my own world with my mom and taking care of her. But there's been so much hubbub about this eclipse this time because there's some things that are different than the last one, and there's more information. I'm going to let you introduce it to us and kind of tell us what have you been learning about this and how is it tying into the biblical principles or prophecies or history.
Well, I'm going to start out with I am so far from being like a biblical scholar.
Yeah,
I'm so
both of
far
us
away from
agree.
it.
Me too.
But I am reading. I read every day. I pray every day. I ask for revelation. I I will say mostly it's for me, not for others necessarily at this point. But as I've been following the story and hearing about this, I just kept getting more and more information. I thought this is really fascinating. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, the eclipse is, basic details. Next Monday, April 8th, is when there will be another eclipse. The last eclipse that's a total solar eclipse. The last one that we had in the United States was just 7 years ago in 2017. So cool. The
Hmm.
next one it will be in 300 years.
Wow.
So it's kind of a big deal. Like if you want to see a solar eclipse in the United States, you're going to be trucking to one of 13 states that it's going to track over. And it's going to start down in Texas. It's going to go up past Maine. And I actually did grab a screen share of this. So I'll show it to you.
Do you
Kind of got
remember
it
where you were last time in 2017
where I was.
yeah, do you remember seeing
So
it?
I don't remember. Here's the date, actually. See, I don't even know the dates, but you can
Mm.
see this here. So there's actually been one solar eclipse,
Uh-huh.
the total solar eclipse of August 21st, 2017. So I would say that I was possibly like bringing my daughter to college or something.
Yeah.
Um, I know that I was in a space of recovery. My husband was coming in terms of my husband had been badly injured that year. We were still navigating that. So I pretty much probably just kind of hopped over that one, didn't really
Okay.
notice it. I do recall kind of being, it seems dark, that it seemed a little dark. And so I'm up here in Minnesota, not along that path. So this is the path that it went through in 2017. And this down here is the path that it's going through next week. So 7 days from now. But I have found some really interesting things as I've been listening to a lot of things on Facebook, and you got to realize they're not an authority all the time either, right? They're going to read things into this, but already I've set a couple of numbers, and there's a lot of people who put a lot of stock in numbers. So I said that the last eclipse was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Another thing about the eclipse 7 years ago, this one right here, is it went across 7 towns by the name of Salem.
Mm.
Salem has the translation of the word peace. And on top of it, some people point out that the Salem is short for also Jerusalem. And in the word Jerusalem, now this is a little far-fetched for me, but I heard it. I'm just passing this on. In the word Jerusalem are the letters USA. And so it was, and then people are talking about this also being a sign of Jonah. We might want to dig into that in a moment, but the sign of Jonah, because when Jonah approached Nineveh, he approached during an eclipse, and he brought a message of peace
Mhm.
to the town, to the city of Nineveh, which is a very powerful city at the time. And he said, the Lord is unhappy with you. You have 40 days or you will be wiped out. And this came after Jonah, he resisted. He did not want to go. He had resisted, he'd run away, he'd gotten onto a boat trying to escape, he'd gotten thrown overboard. If you don't know the story, this is a story in the Bible. Go read it. He got thrown overboard to save the ship and then swallowed by a whale, where he experienced 3 days of darkness. So people have been talking about 3 days of darkness a lot in some of these reels as well. So there's all this stuff. Now, is any of this going to come to pass? I can't predict an hour from now, much less next week, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but a lot of this has been coming into this. Now, if you ignore this line down here for now, the annular solar eclipse of October 14th, 2023. It's interesting because another one of the videos kept saying 2024, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was last fall. But ignore this line right here for now. This also forms the letter X, which
Mhm.
of course X marks the spot. X can also mean, cancel,
Crossed off. Mhm.
cross off. And I didn't quite get to it, but in one reel that I was reading, they indicated that the last, time that there was a big cross off, the country that was crossed off, um,
Disappeared. Ceased
disappeared
to exist.
or changed. Obviously we have the same Earth that we had then, but the Constitution, the government, I think it was either Rome or the Soviet Union is the two that I'm thinking of. I'm kind of thinking it was Rome, that there was, a cross off. And as we know, Rome isn't what it was 2000 years ago. So all of this is kind of coming across. On top of it, I've already said the name Nineveh. This new eclipse next week, I've heard everything from 2 to 11
Yeah. 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 I've heard two.
Ninevehs.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that?
I've heard two. Two
Yeah.
Ninevehs that it was crossing over, but
So
yeah, I
there's
hadn't heard the
two that
11.
are actually on the path, but I've heard up to 11 that are very close to the path. So
Okay.
they're scattered on either side. So there is one, like there's a Nineveh, Texas, that's just off the path. And then there's a handful up here as well, from when I've seen them. And I'm not sure if one of my other slides will show that better. So not only that, but now let's take into account this annular solar eclipse. And that one, this actually forms another letter in Hebrew, the ancient Hebrew, not the current Hebrew, but the ancient Hebrew letter for Alpha and Omega.
These three lines together does?
These three
Is that what you?
lines together, yeah,
Oh,
are the symbol for Alpha and Omega. So the beginning and the end. So there seems to be just all of this stuff. Like, I mean, and when you see the images, and oh, by the way, the X is also, again, I'm not a, I don't speak Hebrew, but that's also a letter in Hebrew that means, I think, final. So yeah, there's a lot of, conjecture, if you
yeah,
will,
yeah.
as to what this might all mean, but it's kind of interesting. So I'm going to add one more kind
Go
of
for it.
interesting fact. Well, this one first on this image, where the solar eclipse will first hit land, way down here in Mexico, will happen at 11:07. Again, that's seven, the 11, 11 being, two ones, one double one, ones are holy. Um, but then where it enters the United States and where the last eclipse exited the United States are kind of interesting. Where the last eclipse exited the United States is where our Civil War began.
Oh,
Where this eclipse is entering the United States, you can't make this stuff up,
yeah.
is where the Civil War ended.
Oh my gosh.
So it started here, it ended here, and they're both tied into and Civil War, and everything that's going on. So there's a lot of conjecture about all this. I want to show you. I mean, this is another one that's this guy here. You can't see him, but he's even going further. He says, look, when we have eclipses, often in a very short period of time, there are earthquakes, massive, really big earthquakes. And again, I really don't know where he got this map, but I just screenshot it because I'm like, I want to study that a little bit. But they're saying that there's a big plate right here along where the Mississippi is. And, but also look at, how many times growing up were we hearing that all of this was going to go undersea?
Hmm.
And Vegas, all of California, look at what happens even in the middle of the continent, the Great Lakes coming to, becoming one sea again, again, perhaps, who knows,
Yeah.
and opening up just a big, like this is what he's saying, like, could this be? He's not saying it will at all. Um, but there's somebody has created this map saying that this is has something to do with something. And I don't know. There was a whole bunch of stuff in this reel that was like, But
You don't
this
know what you
one,
don't know. And it's fascinating to look at some of these things. Yeah.
well, it is. And the one thing that I'll go a little further is that um, the ones that supposedly do know,
Yeah.
have been building bunkers, have been building safe places, let's say the wealthy. And, I wonder, and, the way he explained this, he didn't point to where it is, but, I'm betting it's not in California. How about you?
Yeah,
Unless it's
probably
built underwater.
not. Probably not.
I don't know.
A high mountainous range somewhere.
But also next Monday, the 8th of April. And I mean, how do again, on the same day as an eclipse, this meteor is going to be coming as close as it gets to the Earth.
I hadn't heard that.
Not a meteor, it's a comet. That's the name of it.
The Devil's Comet.
That's
Do
what
do do do.
I know. So it happens every 70 years. So we, won't see it again in our lifetimes. But yeah, the Devil's Comet also comes close to the Earth. And again, any body that's coming close to the Earth, there's a gravitational effect of some degree, which again
Things will be
is
shifting.
potentially why, with by the way, there's going to be five planets visible up in the sky during the total eclipse, along with some stars. I'm
Okay.
not sure if this comet will be visible during the eclipse or not. I haven't heard that, but kind of fascinating. I'll just go through the last couple of slides. So one person called it the Star of Egypt,
Oh,
just showing the two instead of all
yeah.
three. And then this one again just tied into all sorts of numbers. His tail swept down a third, 33% of the stars of heaven and cast them to earth. Revelations 12:4. Oregon is the 33rd state. That's where that entered. Charleston, South Carolina, that's the 33rd parallel.
Wow.
That's the solar eclipse of 2017, 33 days prior to the Revelation 12 sign. I don't know what that means, but 233rd day of the year, 133rd day prior to the last day of the year. Interesting. All those tying into that last eclipse.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So very
So that's
interesting. So
there.
tying in, here's some of my takeaways,
Yeah.
like how are we preparing in our business? How are we handling fear and uncertainty in our business? I see that Heather just came off screen. I know that she may speak a little bit of Hebrew. And if you do you want to come in here and comment on this before we kind of go off in a different direction? I'd love, yeah, come on in.
Where's the question for me? And I'm loving this. LeAnn Lyon, it's so good to see your face and feel your energy. You're always such like warm, loving energy,
Mm.
her sweet voice and we were having a conversation yesterday in my women's gathering about washing our hands with cinnamon to bring in abundance. So we're going to do that today.
Oh,
Ooh, I will too.
cool.
Love to
I
have
just I'm painting my wall cinnamon. That's
wash
cool.
your hands with cinnamon today and like throw it outside at noon on our Zoom gathering. And I'm just grateful that Shelly is here and Nancy is here. My friend Cindy is here. Hotsway is here. Like I invited all my ladies who are spiritual beings who are connected to the cosmos to come in for this conversation. The peace and the science that you bring, LeAnn, to this is like how I want to acknowledge you. A lot of people, there's been like fear floating around about this instead
I
of
want
if
to get to that.
you're scared and you're real about the truth. We say emet, so it's emet in Hebrew is truth. There's one truth. And the honoring the bravery and the courage of women, because we run the households to like, we know what's coming. We don't have to tell everybody, but we get to prepare the household. We get to prepare our husbands. We get to prepare that sense of safety without the rush of like, go to the supermarket, there's a snowstorm coming and buy all the toilet paper. Like just stay in
Please.
balance.
Yeah.
We can dance together, we can breathe together, we can meditate together, we can wash our hands in cinnamon together. And we can learn this beautiful science of truth from LeAnn and Lisa this morning. So I'm super grateful. And did I miss the word or the language that you were speaking of, the Hebrew?
Here, I'll show you the images.
Had three people asked me, somebody sent me an article yesterday so I can translate the Hebrew. And I'm like, this is amazing. I haven't tapped into this part of myself since I was in 10th grade of high school. And it's all coming back and it's so easy because I'm remembering.
Yeah.
I have to pull up the photo. Just one moment. I had closed it, I guess. There we go. So there's two letters in here. One of them is the X letter. It looks like an X. Now that's ancient Hebrew. It's not modern Hebrew, so that's part of it. But I think it's the a letter Te. But I could totally be wrong because I just don't remember. Then the other one looks like this on its side, kind of letter A.
So I'm seeing a map.
You're saying what?
I just see a map behind you.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
you don't see the ley
Yeah.
lines on it? They're green lines. They form
Oh,
an
okay.
image.
Yeah. Okay.
And they
Yes.
say that the
The
image
three
that
lines
represents.
form the letter that
So
it,
that the X is an olive. That's the letter A.
okay. That's the letter A.
Of it's um yeah, I mean these letters are so clear unless it's Sade, which is a different letter, but I think it's the X is the olive. It's the letter A.
Huh.
Okay. Yeah, so that's alpha,
Yeah.
essentially. And then this one right up here.
And more alpha.
What? Oh,
It's
well.
man, it's Mars. It's this cosmic heat that's coming. The war,
Oh.
Well,
man.
yeah. And there's, a lot of talk about judgment and different things. And I do want to get into that because I do have some
Amazing.
thoughts there as well. But then the other one is this on its side kind of letter A. Do you see that?
Yeah, I'm trying to look at my alphabet to see what letter that might be
Um,
in Hebrew. We
yeah.
don't have a, there's not really a shape.
I'll look as well.
Yeah, I love being in this conversation with you girls. Thanks for bringing me in.
Yeah.
Yay, LeAnn.
So how do we, LeAnn, we're exploring this, like the thing, there's so much fear and, your company name is called Joy Minder. My Jeep is called JJ Joy Jeep. We live in joy, even with all the stress and all the events of the times, the current things, the things that are happening. We have this, immense problem with low energy, low vibration. There's so many people who are struggling emotionally. I don't want to use disease words to speak over people, but you've probably run across some people who are really challenged right now. And so how do these things affect our world? How do they affect our business? That's where I kind of want to pull this together. I know exactly where I was in 2017. I was standing with a gal named Betsy. I was in River Falls, Wisconsin. We were out on a balcony on the side of our office building. We had a co-op, a women's co-op, and where we would a co-working space together. And we were standing outside, and we were making pinholes in plates, trying to remember how to look at an eclipse. From then, we didn't have the glasses, and I remember exactly where we were. We were launching a new business. We were launching her speaking career at that time, and there was an amazing series of events that happened after that. Like extraordinary things started to happen. And you had kind of touched on this a little bit, that when there's an eclipse, when there's these events that happen, along the earth or along the waterways here on the planet, different things trickle down. So I want to tie this together. How do we look at this as something that can be a positive versus the fear, uncertainty, scarcity? Do we really need to be building bunkers if something happens? Do you want to be underground and be the last surviving people, or do you want to be above ground and have the full experience? If God comes, I want to be standing above ground seeing him. I don't want to be underground missing the whole thing. I want to be with my friends and family and taking that all in. How do we tie this into our lives? How do we want to live our lives in a place of faith and abundance, like you said, washing our hands in cinnamon to create abundance, versus in fear and uncertainty? That's the question I'm going to throw out, and we'll just kind of go around the room. And LeAnn, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so with that, there is this say in I believe it's in Revelation, again, not a biblical scholar here, but they say when the trumpet sounds, those that are in relationship with God, with Jesus as their savior will immediately ascend, just gone. And there's many, many, series and movies that are brought up about that, saying, that those are, whether they call them the chosen or the lost, left behind is another series that talks about that. And then there goes into 1,000 years of time where those that didn't get taken in the beginning have the opportunity to find their path, find
Well,
their
there's a 7-year tribulation after
Right.
that. And
Right.
then during those 7 years, folks have a chance to, yep, to
yeah.
actually choose to become a believer at that time.
And
Yeah.
then there's 1,000 year thing. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of all of this. And yeah, truly, I would like to be that, oh, there's a horn and jumping into the air and poof, I disappear. Awesome. Perfect. That's what I would prefer.
Yeah.
And I do believe that, to hunker down and to be scared, we have the ability to make the choice right
Yeah.
here, right now. So I've made my choice. I know where I stand. I know how I feel. I know what I believe, and this will be this will be a non-issue. And if I'm wrong and I am not as right with the Lord as I hope that I am, and I do go into that, I still have faith that I will be exactly where I need to be for myself and others. Maybe I need to be left behind, if you will, and there'll be a challenge, and I'm willing to do that as well. I'm willing to do whatever the Lord really feels is where he needs me to be. So while I hope I get taken, that would be amazing. Yep, let's go. I've been ready since I got baptized. I'm like, okay, I'm done. This world is too complicated. Like, bring me on. But I am the Lord's servant, and I will be here, and I will impact the lives and people that I can while I'm here, no matter if I get taken immediately or later. So
Yes.
is that happening next week? We absolutely are told there's no way to know. We will not know the day and time. It's almost to the fact that so many people are predicting something next week that makes me think it's definitely not happening next week. And then with that thought comes, and because I think that it might. So there's
I think that what we need to be aware of is, like, when you're reading the Bible, it talks both in Daniel and it talks in Revelations about how it becomes dark and the sun becomes covered. It talks about the eclipse in there. So we get to have that feeling. We get to experience some history that exists in the Bible. And depending on what your faith is, you may experience that history a little bit different. As you're standing there, can you imagine, read Daniel, I don't remember what book it is, and read Revelations where it talks about the sun coming in and or the eclipse coming in and blocking the sun. Standing there and having that information in your head after reading Revelations or having read Daniel, I think it's book 17, chapter 17. So you know, it's part of that experience. Not to say that end times are coming. That's not what we're getting at, or that's not what I'm getting at all. It's just like, how do you experience the world? This is how you can experience history and how you can experience your faith when there's things happening today, and just remembering back the things that we've read and learned from the Bible and being there and thinking, what must it have been like for those folks? And then tying that into today. Like, how do we want to respond differently? We saw their behavior. We saw the things that people did. We saw how people didn't maybe necessarily become obedient, or they didn't, surrender, or they, chose not to believe and they chose a different path and maybe regretted it later. We get to experience and review history. Do we want to repeat history? And are there things and events that are happening today that can cause us to make a different choice? I don't know. Those are the things that kind of come up
definitely
for
things
me.
happening.
Yeah.
It's in the Matthew 16:4. Jesus speaks of the one and only sign. He said, a wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign,
Yeah.
and no sign shall be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and departed. Now, so there's conjecture. What is the sign of Jonah? And many people say because when Jonah approached Nineveh, the eclipse happened, that the eclipse is the sign of Jonah. But, maybe being swallowed by a whale is the sign of Jonah. Actually, kind of heard something funny. They said, Jonah, having just emerged from the belly of a whale for 3 days, soaked in acid. His hair may have been bleached. His skin might have been bleached. His clothes might have been bleached. He probably looked like a ghost and looking a little rough and tattered from 3 days in the belly of a whale, approaching Nineveh. He probably was a little scary, plus the eclipse. By the way, Nineveh repented. And it was not destroyed in 40 days. And if I recall right, and I was trying to get this, I think Jonah was kind of a little PO'd about that. And I think there's more to that story, but dig into that if you want to as well. Nineveh did eventually, I think 100 years later or so, was just obliterated, completely obliterated. So I think they repented, but ultimately, there just wasn't enough repentance. Or it came back. We
Yeah.
all say, oh, I'm going to be better. Like, oh, I'm going to go on a 10-day detox diet. And you do, and you lose all the weight, and guess what? Then you gain it all back because you go back to your old ways. And I think that's human nature. So with that could have happened in Nineveh as well. By the way,
Yeah.
who names their town Nineveh? I'm sorry, 11 towns in the United States named Nineveh. Why? Just curious.
Maybe they didn't know what happened to Nineveh. Who knows? So how do we prepare? How do individuals prepare spiritually and emotionally for these events that are associated with fear and uncertainty, like the eclipse could be for some people? And then there's masses of people rushing to Texas, and all the hotels, the small motels are all full, the campgrounds are filling up. There's just masses of people who are running towards it. There's some people who are fear, there's just fear and uncertainty when we have these things happen, just like in our business. We have fear and uncertainty, and how do we embrace these experiences that are available to us?
I think I approach every day like a gift. Every day is a gift. I woke up, I received 2 gifts this morning. Did you know that?
No.
I opened 2 eyes. And that's exactly it. We literally don't know. When I was 17, 19, and 21, I had 3 pretty traumatic events happen in my life. And by the third one, I woke up in the hospital and I just said, Lord, I'm still here. Not sure why, but use me. I'm here. I'm good. Just use me. Tell me what you need me to do. And um, I'm going to hopefully bring you forward now. I know you switched devices here.
Yeah.
Remove pin, but I want to make you a co-host. Uh, there we go.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we are both co-hosts now. And uh, okay, so so anyway, I just approach every day with that attitude of, we just don't know, you know. Uh Life has taught me, and I think a lot of us, that you don't know what's around the next corner. It's snowing right now. I have an appointment 30 minutes away from here, and I'm like, oh, good, because I do know the roads are going to be a little more slippery. I do know that there's going to be people that feel they don't know how to drive, and I'm super grateful that I got new snow tires this year that I'm finally going to get to use. But does that mean I'm going to get there? Not really, but I
Yeah.
probably will. And pretty much every day, that's my approach, is like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do my best. And I also have a deep, deep, deep faith that God takes care of even the sparrows, and he loves us more. He loves all of us more. And so if he takes care of the sparrows, the deer, I have a beautiful view out of my window here, and it's snowing so much right now. But he's taking care of all of those animals and all of those birds. I even saw a robin the other day. And he cares so much more for us. Does that mean bad things don't happen? Absolutely not. We know bad things happen. But that's because of the sin that we brought into the world. It's not being brought on by our Heavenly Father, who loves us deeply.
Mm.
And that's how I approached my life and my business. I don't fret over, oh, we need to get this many people signed up or something like that. It just isn't. I know that things will go the way they're going to go, and all things are working in my favor. Period.
It's the mindset. Yeah. What is the mindset around your business? Do we come from a place of trust and faith? Do we consistently develop those relationships and connect with folks and pour into other people so that they see the value that we can bring to them and the value that we can bring to their businesses? And does our faith play a role in that, or do we hide that faith? We only show up on Sundays, and we don't bring in that. I mean, faith really has to do with kindness, compassion, love, generosity. That how do we treat those people that we're doing business with, and then they reciprocate that. When we give that out, we get that back. May not be business with them, but it might be referrals, or offerings. We have no idea just like we don't know what's going to happen with the eclipse. We don't know what's going to happen afterward. We don't know the effects it's going to have on the planet. But we do know that when we put good into the world, good oftentimes can come back. And when it comes back, it can come back tenfold to us.
100%.
Yeah. Final thoughts. Is there a message of hope that you would like to leave people with as we close this down?
I'm just going to go the way that that matters most. 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, my business probably won't matter. The people that I've served, the people that I love, 100 years from now won't be here, nor will I. And most likely I will be not remembered. I mean, there's very little chance. I barely remember the names of my great grandparents, probably don't know all of them, right? And so that temporal thing, I just release it. Be right with your eternal self. And I'll share that one last quick thing. A month ago today, my Facebook account got hacked by somebody in Taiwan. And I had a very different reaction to it than I did a couple of years ago. And I think it speaks to my spiritual maturity as well. That although it was 15 years of memories and celebrations and pictures and thoughts and all the stuff gone, owned by somebody else who is misusing my stuff. Kind of painful. But I reached out to that person. I set up another account and I talked with my hacker. And my message to my hacker was, you are loved. You are worthy. You don't have to do this. Their message back to me was, give me $200. I said, no, no, because the $200 won't save your life. But repenting and not doing evil things and ultimately trusting in Jesus. And I sent worship music. I sent You didn't know this?
I didn't. You never shared that with me.
I sent worship music. I sent prayer. He sold it to somebody else for $200. I continued. I was like, okay. He goes, oh, this is your account. I said, yep. Can I have it back? He said, nope. I need to do this with it. I never saw any evidence that any harm came to anyone during the month that they had it. And then last Thursday, boom, it became mine again.
Wow.
No fanfare, no big announcement from anybody, not the hacker and not Facebook. Just suddenly I was able to log in. And so it just again goes back to what, I was a little sad to lose my Facebook account, but I wasn't like railing about it. I wasn't pounding my fists on the ground, and because it ultimately doesn't matter. What matters is our eternity. And that's what I told them too. I said, that $200 isn't going to change your life. It really isn't. But your eternity is a lot longer than however long our lives or our businesses are going to last. So focus on what matters. That's what matters.
Beautiful. Focus on what matters. Your life is short. We're only here for a small time. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. How do you want to experience your life? Do you want it to be filled with hope and joy? Do you want to serve other people? How are you going to show up in your business? It can't always be about just the transaction. It needs to be about the people and the relationships. That's why it's called F.A.V.O.R, right? Faith, abundance, vitality, overflow, and relationships. We pull them all together. So I hope that you've gleaned a little bit of insight, had a little bit of fun looking at current events and things that are happening in the world right now. But most importantly, I want you to come back because we have Reverend Michael Long with us next week. He is studies Buddhism. He studies Christianity. He has a diverse background in faith. And so we're going in another direction talking about faith and favor next week. So I hope y'all come back, everybody. Thanks so much.
Bye.